Math 1, first semester final, review, Unit 3. All right, the table shows the cost C of buying T tickets. Find the average cost when buying 5 tickets. So this is basically a strangely worded unit rate problem. We want to know how much each ticket will cost you if you bought 5 tickets. So that is simply $35 over 5 tickets, and 35 divided by 5 is 7, so we get $7 per ticket. Number 28. John buys apples for $1.50 each. Create an equation and graph the cost y in dollars of buying X apples. Label your axis. All right, so the cost is $1.50 per apple, or $1.50x, or 150x. So there's your equation. If we're going to graph this, we only need the first quadrant on this one because you can't buy negative apples. So we'll just create the first quadrant here. And our x-axis is going to be apples. And our y-axis is going to be cost. This is in dollars. And we'll just go 1 apple, 2 apples, 3 apples, 4 apples, 5 apples, 6 apples, 7 apples, so on. And then we'll go dollars over here. $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8. Okay, so 1 apple would cost you $1.50 right there. 2 apples would cost you $3. 1, 2, 3. 3 apples would cost you $1.50. So there's 3, 4, 50 right about there. And 4 apples would cost you $6. So there's here 4.55, 6 would be right about there. And you can see we have a nice linear equation going. This is discrete because you can't buy half an apple. So, and I'm going to make this a line, but I'm going to lightly draw the line, knowing that every time we put an apple, it should be at $1.50. All right, moving on. There are 134 students in the 5th grade. 6 students will go into a combination class, and the rest will go into 4 5th grade classes. Create an equation in terms of the number of students in each 5th grade class. Then solve for S. All right, so S is the number of students in each class. We know we have 4 5th grade classes, 4 5th grade classes, so we'll call that 4S. Not a big fan of using S as a variable. But then we have 6 kids, I think it was. Where are they? We have, 6 students are going to a combination. So we're just going to kind of take those guys out of the equation. All right. So we have a total of 134 5th grade students. So all the 5th grade students are going to end up in one of the 4 classes, except for those 6 that are going into the combination class. So now solving for S, I'll subtract 6 from both sides. I want to get rid of those 6 kids in the combination class. As far as our 4 strictly 5th grade classes, they're not going to count. So 4S equals 128. And we divide both sides by 4, and we get S equals, what do we get, 32? S equals 32. So our equation is 4S plus 6 equals 134, and that means there'll be 32 students in each 5th grade class. So we can go check our work. 4 times 32 is 828. Then we can add in the 6 that are in the combination class, and we are at 134. Moving on. A phone company charges a rate of R for each hour that Jill wants to use the phone. Write an equation to express the cost for T hours. Well, that means Jill's going to pay, or it's going to cost her R for T hours. So that's just the basic equation. Her cost will depend on the rate and the number of hours she uses the phone at that rate. Moving on. Number 31. The graph of f of x is shown. Determine the ordered pair that is a solution to the equation represented by f of x equals 0. So now remember, f of x can be represented as y. So that's the same thing. So y equals 0. And where does y equal 0? At the x-intercept, right? So without even solving for x, we can just come right over here, and it looks like it's at -3. But let's check. Let's do the work over here. I'm saying it's at 0, -3 is what I believe my answer. I'm sorry, -3, 0 is what my answer is. But let's go ahead and solve. We'll subtract 1 from both sides. And we end up with 1/3 x equals -1. How do you get rid of a fraction? You multiply by the reciprocal, multiply both sides by the reciprocal. Here they cancel each other out. You get x equals -1 times 3 is in fact -3. Because where y equals 0, you're at the x-intercept. Number 32. Jose will spend exactly $31 to buy books and songs online. Books cost $5 and songs cost $1. Create an equation with x equals the number of books. So I'm going to put x equals books and y equals the number of songs. Graph the line created by the equation and determine all the possible combinations of purchases Jose can make with $31. Okay, so we know that books cost $5, so that's 5x plus y. Could be 1y because it's $1 per song, but we don't necessarily need that. Equals $31. Okay, so our job is to figure out all the combinations. So this is all going to take place in the first quadrant. So I'm going to draw my graph here. Alright, and x is books, so I'm going to write that down here. Should have left myself a little more room. And y is songs. Alright, now the best thing to do here is you find your x and y intercept. Because if you find the x-intercept, that'll be how many books you can buy if you didn't purchase any songs. And if you find the y-intercept, that'll be how many songs you can buy if you didn't purchase any books. Alright, so if we plug in 0 for y, we get 5x plus 0 equals 31. Okay, and then we get divide both sides by 5, and we get x equals basically 6.2. Well, you can't buy 0.2 of a book, so what you can do is, to make this easy, if we bought 6 books, it would be $30, and we'd have $1 left over for a song. So the best thing to do is, if we buy 6 books, and let's see here, if we go, this graph's going to be a little off because we really need 31 over here, so I think we're going to go, let's see, we're going to buy 6, so let's go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And unfortunately, our graph, our axes aren't going to be the same, so I'm going to basically call this 5 over here. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Now, if we bought 6 books, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books, we'd still have $1 left over where we could buy 1 song. So we'll put our dot there because our x-axis is really, or excuse me, our x-intercept is really right about here. Okay, so 6 books and 1 song will get us right about there. And of course, if we plug in 0 for x, we would find out how many songs we could buy, which would just be 31 songs. So I think we said 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 31 songs would be about there. And if we connect those 2 points, we will have all the possible combinations. All right. So, if we bought one book would be right here. If we bought one book, we could buy 26 songs, which should be right about there. So it'd be one book and 26 songs. If we bought 2 books, well, that would be 2 books would cost us $10, so we'd have $21 left for books, or excuse me, songs. If we bought 3 books, it would cost us $15, which would leave us $16 for songs. If we bought 4 books, that would cost us 4 times 5 or 20, which would leave us $11 for songs. If we bought 5 books, that would be $25, leaving us $6 for songs. And as we already said, 6 books would leave us $1 for songs. So these are all your combinations. Moving on to number 33. The amount of water in a tank in gallons is a function of time in hours, shown to the right. State if the statement is true or false. So let's see here. The tank is empty after 11 hours. Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That is true. It's where the tank is empty when you're on the x-intercept. The maximum amount of water in the tank is 11 gallons. No. Looks like the maximum is 60, 70, 80, 90, 110. So that's false. The maximum amount of water in the tank is 110. That's correct. 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110. So that is true. The rate of change in the amount of water in the tank is decreasing by 10 gallons per hour. Well, let's see. Started at 110. In 1 hour, it is at 100. 2 hours at 90. So that is true. At time 6 hours, there is 50 gallons in the tank. Well, let's see here. 6 hours is right here. We follow that up, and we go back, and it's at 50. That is true. At time 90 hours, there is 2 gallons in the tank. 90? I don't think that's true. The tank is empty at 11 hours, so that's false. Moving on to number 34. For y equals 1/4 x plus 1, state the slope in the y-intercept and graph the line. All right, we'll always find the slope in front of the x when it's in slope-intercept form. So slope is 1/4, and the y-intercept is always after the x when it's in slope-intercept form. So we graph the y-intercept first of 1, and then a slope of 1/4 means rise 1, run 4. Take our straight edge, make a nice, neat line all the way across the graph. All right, number 35, we want the slope and a point on the line. All right, so it's pretty easy when we have this. Is called point-slope formula. So the slope will always be in front of the parentheses when it's in point-slope form. So it's -3. And a point on the line, remember, is always the opposite of these two. So our point would be -1 and +2. So -3 slope and a point -1, 2 would be right here. And a -3 slope would mean down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1. And they want the y-intercept, which is going to be -1. And now we'll just go ahead and graph these points, or actually draw a line through those points. Okay, number 36. All right. Change y minus 2 equals -3 times the quantity x plus 1 to slope and y-intercept form. that is y equals mx plus b, state the slope and the y-intercept, graph the line using the slope and y-intercept. All right, all that means is to get y by itself, so we will distribute, and we get y minus 2 equals negative 3x minus 3. We will then add 2 to both sides, and we get y equals negative 3x minus 1, which means our slope is negative 3, and our y-intercept is negative 1. Those numbers should seem familiar to you because they're the same numbers we had on the last question. And a negative 3 slope means down 1, run 1. Connect the dots. And we end up with the exact same line we had on question 35. Okay, part B, what should be true about the graph in 35 and 36? They should be the same. All right, number 37. For 5x plus 2y equals 10, state the ordered pairs of the x and the y-intercept for the graph. Use graph of the line using the x and y-intercept. All right, so this is pretty easy. We've talked a lot about the x and the y-intercept this semester. If we want to find the x-intercept, we plug in 0 for y. That goes away. We divide both sides by 5, and we get x equals 2. So the x-intercept is 2, 0. If we want the y-intercept, we plug in 0 for x. That goes away. We divide both sides by 2, and we get y equals 5, which means the y-intercept is 0, 5. Plotting those 2 points, 2, 0 is right here, and 0, 5 is right there. Use a straight edge to connect our 2 points. All right, and the last one in Unit 3, change 5x plus 2y equals 10 to slope-intercept form. That is y equals mx plus b. State the slope and the y-intercept, graph using the slope and y-intercept. Pretty easy. It's the same thing we did before. We just have to get y by itself. So I will subtract 5x from both sides. And I'm left with 2y equals negative 5x plus 10. I'll divide everything by 2. 2 over 2 is 1y, or just y. We have negative 5 halves as a slope, plus 5. All right, so our y-intercept is at 5, and our slope is negative 5 halves. So I'll plot the point 0, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And a slope of negative 5 halves means go down 5 and run 2. And then we plotted the 2 points. Now we'll just connect the points. And we end up with the same line as up above. You can see those are the same line. Whether we graph it with x and y-intercept or the slope-intercept form, it's the same line. And that's what they want to know here. Same.